All right, let's get started. So today I'm going to play some music and talk about it a little bit. It's music from my Bandcamp site, zenglop.bandcamp.com, and you can see this is from 2018. In 1819, I put a lot of stuff on Bandcamp. I was first getting into Eurorack and was really just exploring and finishing stuff and putting it out there, and very much enjoying the process and the work. I got a little bit off kilter during the pandemic. Surprisingly, I didn't spend 20 hours a day writing electronic music. I'm a little disappointed in myself that that's not what I did. But I've just gotten a new piece of gear that I've been waiting for a long time. So I'm revitalized and re-energized, and I'm putting together some components to start working with. And I thought I would go back and listen to some of the stuff that I did back 4 years ago, and just see whether it still resonates, whether it holds true, whether it's worth listening to. This particular piece I brought up yesterday randomly, because when I was talking about titles and pieces, I talked about how I used a random poetry generator to come up with my titles. And so the text here, "You Have Both of Us from These Days," was probably a auto-generated text. And then there are 3 tracks underneath it. Me yesterday, you today, both tomorrow. That would have been me responding to that title. And I obviously had come up with 3 pieces. I needed 3 titles. This piece, as I was listening to it, could also be called Love Song to the BBC Radiophonic Studio. Love Song to BBC science fiction music from the 1970s, like early Doctor Who, your pre-orchestral sample Doctor Who, all of the music from Blake 7. And I thought I would play through this and keep talking while I play it. You can see it's 3 minutes, 3 minutes. This last track is 8 minutes. I may not go the whole duration. But I thought it would be interesting while I was talking to play the no, that's not right. To show the spectrum, the frequency analysis. So this tool here is Sonic Visualizer. It's free. You can download it. Let me just start playing while we're talking here. So Sonic Visualizer can be downloaded, and then this here is just the waveform, which I'm going to remove. So the spectrogram is frequency here over time here. And you can see these gestures, which really do sound like they came from Blake 7, this sort of beautiful, austere FM sound. You can kind of imagine like a Doctor Who monster slowly walking through the scene. These sort of stepwise gestures. I probably had a sequencer, maybe the SQ1, the Korg SQ1, running into what I think all 3 of these I used the Make Noise dual prismatic oscillator. I see this line here. That's that pitch, that frequency that just goes on for the duration. Let's see if I can zoom in a little bit. Zoom in. There's something about this sound that is so clean and pure. There we go. See a little bit more detail. The stepwise activity. There's a little bit of a warble with the continuous pitch on it. And we can hear the low note here, there. There's probably 2 tracks of the DPO on this. I tend to record, when I do Eurorack, I tend to use very few components. I have a moderately sized Eurorack. It's over there. Maybe when I show the Cosmos, the looper, you'll get to see the rest of it. The Cosmos looper, okay, so that's right. One of the reasons I'm getting back into the Eurorack is the Cosmos from Soma Labs is a looper, but it's a sort of built-in intuitive functions where it's not a rhythmical looping. It's designed to let the loops come in and out of phase. You can define the parameters, but the actual outcome of it is not something that you can deliberately pattern. You can't sync this up to a MIDI clock or something like that. So that was the first. That was the first track. Let me open the second one. So that idea of patterns that can shift in and out in a not quite predictable but not random fashion is very much an aesthetic that I like. So that was me yesterday. The second one is you today. Do I want to save it? Say no. This sound is within the same sonic universe as that first piece, but it's a bit more lush. You can see right from the get-go that the spectrum is much fuller. I mean, this sort of looks like a map of the universe unfolded, doesn't it? Like there's a sense of larger string structures throughout the piece, even while there's this very immediate shape, kind of shape. The piece in its entirety has these odd sort of folds in it, doesn't it? Like it's really interesting to see how the short scale patterns evolve into this larger set of patterns. If I zoom in, you'll see more of the immediate shaping. There we go. I'm zooming in. Yeah, okay, so here's very, very detailed. You see how all the individual shapes themselves have a very characteristic little uptick to them. But the overall piece, say, it really looks like the folds of the brain, or sometimes you see a picture of the universe, whatever that means, laid out flat, sort of representing string theory. None of that was intended in this piece. It was very, those kinds of ideas come after the fact. There's always a very pleasing trial and error with synthesis for me. I think that's why I like Eurorack, because it's, at least for me, it is well nigh impossible to recreate something once I already have put it in place. I've obviously got some kind of delay going on there as well. But I don't have a whole lot of effects units. I think it might just be the Erica Synths Pico reverb unit. Oh, you know what? I might even have the 2 HP delay. That's probably what it is. I invested in oscillators, and not so much in effects, and not as much in filters as I would have liked to. I've since this time bought a couple of filters, but I still don't have as many filters as I would like. Although, having said that, the sounds that come out of these pure oscillators, particularly things like this make noise, this DPO, I think that's why it resonates so much with the sci-fi 70s sound, that sort of sine wave FM studio sound. So then the third piece, where is it? Let me open this if I might need to. Maybe I never. Here we go. Both tomorrow. So there's a cuteness to my naming, but we can deal with that. Okay, so add spectrogram. Here we go. Add spectrogram, and I'm gonna have to change my. Yeah. Oh yeah. No. Here's what I'm gonna do. Sorry. This is all good. Good training for you to learn how to use these. You have to spend a fair bit of time faffing around with these settings over here to get a view that you like and that also shows what you want to show in the music. And once you've done that, it's the kind of thing I can never remember what it is. So once you've done that, it's better to save it almost like a template and then replace the audio. You keep the settings, but now you have different music. So you can see this piece is not just longer, but it's very different technique. This is like a toccata. It's a repeated patterns. And you can see that you can see. Oops, didn't want to do that. There we go. Yeah, I lost all my settings. All that I was telling you about there, I lost all my settings. Don't worry about it. Okay, and then I want to zoom in on the. There we go. And then if I select all and zoom to fit. These settings are all changing the granularity of the mapping of how many buckets there are for frequency and the time slice. And all of those are necessary settings in order to be able to do this spectrographic analysis. Right? So what's happening here is at every given interval of time, a snapshot of all of the current frequencies are taken, and then it's stitched together. So you change the window of time and the window of frequency. Fourier transform. Fourier transform kind of assumes that the waveform is going to stay the same for infinity. You can do the mathematical analysis. This is any complex waveform, no matter how complex, can be represented as the sum of sine waves at various overtones, which is what's represented here. But because this changes, basically you do Fourier transform on a window and then add them together. I find it a very meaningful kind of analysis. So you can hear how this pattern is changing gradually over 8 minutes, with a couple of inflection points. These points here, where something obviously changes, but then within those, there are sections where not a lot changes. Now it looks like we're about to come up on an inflection point. Let's see what happens. You hear that? I introduced a new, slightly higher element. That repeated pitch, that's this bit down here. Everything else is. Did you hear that repetition? That's this line down here. All of this stuff up here is sort of the frothy oscillation of overtones that don't quite meet the threshold of these settings to be displayed here. It's why I like to narrow down. Yeah. You can change, this is linear, you can change it to be logarithmic. And one of the reasons that you might want to have a logarithmic display is because that's more like how we hear, right? Overtones, frequencies that are higher pitched are typically sorry, got a little off track there while I was talking. That was the end. Here, let's listen to that end bit again, because it obviously a bit of a wham doodle. Me turning on. So a logarithmic display, right, where here we're jumping up 33 to 36, whereas here we're going 23 to 35. It recognizes that we hear more power at those higher frequencies, and so we can represent them differently. Anyway, so we made it through all of that. If you listen to all of that, then please subscribe to hear more. Over the weekend, I'm going to unbox that Soma Synth Cosmos and start to play around with that. If you have any questions about what I just talked about, or any suggestions, or any if you've also used spectrographic analysis, I actually used this tool as a compositional device, actually drawing, not literally drawing, but looking for sound that followed a particular shape. It was something I was very interested in a while ago. And then I gave that up. I started to feel like it was a crutch. That the idea was always more interesting than the sound that came out of it. But maybe I'll revisit some of that, particularly very geometric shapes, like some of these shapes here. I could see building out a pattern to generate the sound. This is the analysis of the sound. What if I reversed engineered a pattern into sound? Those were the kinds of things I did. One of the most effective pieces I did for that was based on the surface of the moon. I'll make a note to bring that out soon. But there you go. I can keep talking forever, so keep your wits about you, and drop a note, drop a question. Cheers.